We survived 2022 seemingly against all the odds. So many challenges, from electric ones to political ones, the Palo crisis, the ANC and its elective conference. A lot of us didn't think we got to the end of the year, but we did. And here we are at the beginning of a fresh year and at the end of a fresh week of massive load shedding. Does that set the scene for the year? Let's have a look at what we can expect in this country for the year ahead. After that, we'll take a quick look at your personal theme to focus on to make your 2023 as best as it could be. Well, January has set the scene for the ongoing Eskom debacle, the load shedding debacles, and unfortunately, of course, that is not looking any better at all. The first half of the year in particular looks very challenging in terms of the Eskom crisis. Not too surprising, because you know that one of the units of Kubik has been switched off, but that's not the only reason. We know that all the usual reasons, which don't need discussion over here, continue to bite deeper and deepen the electricity crisis. It could reach the point during the first quarter of the year where that actually leads to some kind of even civil unrest. As other things get affected by load shedding, not just people and their electricity, you're going to see some result in terms of the people, from organizing to rising up. And in fact, the people organizing is one of the themes of this year and one of the most important things that is developing over the course of this year. Certainly, in the first quarter of the year, we can see opposition forces beginning to strengthen themselves and push against the government. The government is, freshly invigorated, if you like, by the success of keeping their President Ramaphosa in power at Nasrec, and seemingly to increase his power, the way the NEC is working, all of those kind of things, giving them confidence and, of course, a certain amount of complacency, which the opposition forces are going to take advantage of. So in the first half of the year, opposition forces are beginning to group themselves, especially in the first third, where they are beginning to find their feet to, by the time we get to the second quarter of the year, to actually start reorganizing. In fact, we can see a lot of organizing and reorganizing happening against the government. The government in the first part of the year, first quarter of the year, looks quite hard-headed and even belligerent. That confidence they have gained from the last month or so, and managing to steer the oppositional forces, even within their party, away, has given them a certain amount of course, blindness to what's going on, overconfidence. And that will, not surprisingly, act in the favor of all those oppositional forces as well. While the financial crisis continues to deepen, and certainly in the first and second quarters of the year, it's pushing South Africans further and further to feelings of being disgruntled, being unhappy, wanting to do stuff. The opposition forces are going to be able to at first take advantage of that and take advantage of the Eskom situation, because the financial situation and the Eskom situation are biting deep in the first half of the year. The distraction for us all, for better or for worse, sport and entertainment continues to give hope and positivity throughout the year. And it's not a trivial topic at all. Sport, of course, is very important to us. And despite the Proteas' recent challenges in Australia, despite Siya Kolisi leaving to go and play for France, where it looks like our sporting arena is facing a lot of challenges, there's also a lot of room for fresh growth that's going to rise out of that. That gives us a lot of positivity and hope for ourselves. In the second quarter, we might even have the formation of a new political party, not something that's terribly unusual in this country, or other formations and structures that civil society starts developing in order to oppose the government. South Africans, as we know, are not really such a complacent bunch. When we need to do stuff, we do it, we find solutions to problems. And as it becomes increasingly clear that the government has little ability and perhaps little interest in finding solutions to problems, this is what's pushing civil society and South Africans themselves to actually begin to do something. What we can do at first is it's this reorganization that's happening on the opposition side of politics, not only in new political parties, but in NGOs and civil organizations that are going to begin to enact, to create a certain amount of power for themselves to start influencing and changing things where they can. The government will react against that, and we are seeing the likelihood of smear campaigns and those kind of things building up during the second quarter of the year. It's also not really too surprising because we know that we've got an election year ahead in 2024. So we are, of course, going to see efforts, and some successful efforts, to expose scandals and challenges in the opposition, especially in the DA, who will face the exposure or discovery of other problems that are probably stirred up by all these conflicting forces. It's almost like we're seeing an unspoken war developing in this country that's not really about violence, but it's kind of the government versus everyone else. And that everyone else is beginning to organize in new ways. It's not going to lead to a revolution or a civil war, an actual war of any kind. But we've seen in this country how powerful civil society can be and how effective South Africans can be when they organize for themselves. And that's what's happening in the second quarter of the year. Also, during that time, either through the complete lack of any development in the Phala Phala scandal or fresh exposure, not of new information, but of bringing things to the surface, does make it a little bit shaky for the president. And that carries over quite challengingly into the third quarter of the year, because in the third quarter of the year, perhaps in response to the opposition that is beginning to develop strength against government in power, the oppositional forces within the ANC are beginning to show their strength at that time. Now, people within that party seemingly also kind of complacently think that those forces were vanquished at Nasrec in December. We can see those oppositional forces regathering in the third quarter of the year, especially, says the chart, under the influence of powerful women. We know that there are powerful women in government who are opposed to Ramaphosa's faction, Sisulu, Dlamini Zuma, and others, and we can see that they are kind of stirring things up. There's trouble being stirred up, and that is going to lead to, yet again, visible cracks in the ruling party, and those cracks are beginning to threaten it, especially since also in the third quarter, nothing new, but there seems to be a fresh electricity crisis. At a guess, that's Kuberg being delayed, the restarting of the one reactor at Kuberg being delayed. Could be other things, could be stage 7 or 8 becoming the norm. Hopefully it's not that, but nothing surprises us anymore. But that, combined with the issues within the party itself, looks like it's going to make quite a challenge for the government. And it actually looks like President Ramaphosa responds with relatively bold moves. For him, that could not be as bold as it might be for the rest of us, but it's something. However, might not be something enough of a something, because it looks like there's a lot of instability being created in the strength of the government during the third quarter. And there is social instability as well, new domestic crises. There's not really the civil unrest side of the story so much, but it does look like it's very difficult with all these cracks appearing for anyone to claim that everything's fine. And it's also then going to be at this time that government is borrowing more. It does look like there's fresh money coming in from somewhere. They've managed to borrow, and that also might help us on the one hand resolve some issues, but give them fresh strength. We know that mostly the ANC is looking for money for itself more than it is for the country, and maybe that's what that is giving them fresh strength. The other thing that it seems to be is related to the ongoing Reserve Bank matter. We know that the ANC is fairly determined to change the mandate of the Reserve Bank. And we know that there are challenges in doing so because they no longer hold a 2/3 majority in Parliament. Nevertheless, it seems by the third quarter they're finding a way to go about something. And it does look like the Reserve Bank issue is right back up on top of the list in that third quarter of the year. So financial changes as the government is juggling things around and trying to maintain not only its hold on power, but of course the economic situation of the country, which, like most of the world, is being challenged by recession and very clearly shown in our charts, biting hard this year. All of us are going to be facing that challenge. So third quarter of the year is the financially challenging time comes all to a head. As challenging as all of this can be, it can also be positive because this is what pushes us to organize as civil society. It what pushes oppositional politics to potential new prominence, to the potential of actually saying or doing more meaningful things. Yes, there's an election in 2024, and we know that anyone will say anything when it comes to an election on the cards. But this time, the opposition parties will have some teeth because there are really real challenges that the ANC government is failing to deal with. And there's a lot of support from civil society that will give these oppositional forces a lot of strength. Remember, as I said at the beginning, one of the themes in the chart this year seems to be this increasing power of opposition and the hidden war that is now these two opposing forces in the country, the government and everyone else. That does sound like maybe for once the government isn't the most powerful factor in one of those kind of wars, but we also know they will fight hard, they will fight dirty, and that we see more of as we go into the fourth quarter of the year. Getting close to the elections, sure. One thing that is explicitly shown in the chart at that time is the deliberate effort by government or the president to kind of obscure things and create a certain amount of illusion. That's especially true in the case of the president, perhaps talking about Phala Phala yet another year later, but it could be because it's that long that we're talking about something else. But it does look like, quite simply, the president continues to kind of either pull the wool over our eyes or duck and dive and get us to look somewhere else. You know, we often use the word Teflon in this country, usually to describe another president and other members of that same party. It seems as if it's also a word we should be applying to the current president as he manages to continue to duck and dive. Nevertheless, the whole second half of the year is looking very challenging for the ANC and for the government. And while Ramaphosa is using that strategy to try and maintain the apparent strength of the government in the face of an upcoming election, but it's the face of that upcoming election that is what we have to look forward to. Elections, of course, are always important. We all know that the 2024 election is going to be very instrumental in affecting, in changing the political scene in this country quite significantly so. At this stage, we're not looking and can't see whether that means an outright loss for the ANC, things like that are not something which we see in the 2023 charts. But certainly we can see a realignment of power in the same way that most political commentators would expect, whether it's coalition or dramatically reduced power of the ANC in some form. Here in the charts, we're seeing it as the rise of oppositional forces and civil forces, keeping the government's power much more in check. And the election year is obviously going to do that a lot more so. And that's what helps us end the year on a much more positive note. Surprisingly, amazingly, and quite delightfully, we do manage to end up on a more positive note. It is a very challenging year. There's no doubt about that. This hidden war is going to undermine a lot of things while it builds the strength of the opposition, a necessary building of strength, as we know. And we know the financial crisis and the electricity crisis are really, as the charts have shown throughout the year, are really going to continue to work hard on us. But we're getting help, we're getting input from elsewhere that is going to help us as South Africans and is going to help the oppositional forces gain new strength in some way. For example, ANC wants to change the law so that they can get more money from donors. Of course, everyone else is also going to be able to get more money from donors. And maybe that's what it is. That I don't know, but I do know that there is help, that there are others who have an interest in this country and what's happening here, who will offer whatever help they can for a legitimate fight to kind of reclaim the country from the politicians and self-interested parties who have captured it over the last few years, as we all know, to our horror and shame. So we are ending the year looking like the oppositional forces, be they political or social, both, are really giving us hope that change will happen, that the election itself will represent a certain amount of change, but whatever the outcome exactly of that is going to allow us as South Africans to effect new changes, to really start feeling as if we're taking power back for ourselves. We've been pushed to the point where we as people are feeling powerless, and powerless is no longer just Eskom, it's in charge of our lives and our land. And by the end of the year, we're beginning to feel we can get it back. We can make this country into what we know it always could have been and has had the chance to be if there weren't such self-interested people in charge and affecting everything that affects us all. So we end the year looking forward to elections that will change things, to the renewed power of civil society, perhaps including a certain amount of renewed ability for us to generate our own electricity, whatever it may be, that overcomes some of the obstacles that the current government is throwing in our way. So there is hope, despite, in summary, electric crisis, financial crisis, government being belligerent and eventually showing some cracks, having their own crisis. That's where opposition and civil society gain strength and perhaps look forward to creating some changes in 2024. We've just got to hang in there, and we've all got something of our own to hope for and focus on. Let's have a look at that. Aries, your year is about focusing on your own talents, your own abilities, and also enjoying yourself while doing it. It's a year when you need to bring more fun and pleasure into your life, a year when your relationships are especially important, and also a year when you need to sort out the old existing stuff in your relationships. It's very much a time of clearing your way, clearing out the old emotional baggage that stands in your way, perhaps with the possibility of new ones coming along, fresh, and the same goes for your talents. Find fresh opportunities to express them. It's your time to have fun. Taurus, this is the time to focus on what needs to get done. It's like your year of putting your shoulder to the wheel and making it happen. And it's not hard, horrible kinds of work at all. It looks like this is the time where you're more able to be committed to what you're doing, more focused on what you're doing, and get a greater sense of personal satisfaction. That is your focus this year. Focus your energy into your work. Make sure you're getting what you need out of it. Make sure you're willing to put into it what it takes. Hard work this way is going to bring a lot of reward and a lot of sense of purpose. That's your 2023. Geminis, this is your year to sort out relationship matters once and for all. Old relationships need to be cleared out or fixed up. New relationships could very well be on the cards for you, but you really need to look at what's going to work for me for the long term. It's time to think about things a little bit more seriously and establish some of your security through your emotional life. Not time to stop having fun, but certainly time to start getting a little bit more serious, a little bit more committed, not only to your romantic relationships, but to everything that you've committed yourself to. So clean your plate, commit yourself to the important people. You'll have a great year. Cancerians, you've got two focuses in your chart this year. The one is to start gathering your resources more effectively. It's time to either ask for that raise or make sure you're getting what you're worth, whether it be at work or elsewhere in your life. It's really just making sure that your worth is satisfied. And the second thing is that the same applies to your personal life. Am I really appreciated? Are these people really the right people for me? You're in a strong place emotionally this year, and that's really going to work for you to get in touch with what do I want, what do I need, what's best for me. Take that into your personal life and your financial life. Then it's a good year for you. Leo, your theme for the year is to spread your wings and bring new things into your life. It looks like you've kind of been stuck in what's safe, familiar, or known, or just what you're stuck with. But you are the only one who can change that. So look far and wide. Go out there and find new things. In some ways, some Leos, this is a start again, start afresh kind of year for you. It's a great year for beginnings of every kind, especially those that you make happen yourself. Now's the time to stretch yourself, branch out, make new things happen, build new foundations for yourself for future successes. Virgos, there's a lot you can achieve this year. It's a great opportunity to pursue your goals, to really take your ambitions a lot further. But you also face a bit of a challenge this year, and that is also making sure that home is also important in where your energy lies. A bit of home versus work conflict is your theme for the year. You have to sort that out a lot better for yourself, but it does look like you actually need to reevaluate some of those ambitions, and you'll be able to sort out your priorities a lot more easily. So clean your plate, weed out the ambitions that are no longer useful for you. Make home your base. Libra, this is going to be one of those years where it really feels like all the things that are important to you, the things that you care about your most, are on the table. They can be satisfied and they can be fulfilled. Your relationships are going to be more fulfilling. Your work is going to be more fulfilling as long as it conforms with your highest ideals. So your true theme, Libra, is to ask yourself, what are my ideals and what can I do in my life to make sure that I'm following them now that the work that I do and the people I'm with are supportive of it. Now is the chance to make the big stuff happen for yourself. Scorpio, this is your year for dealing with old baggage kind of once and for all. Getting it out, getting it behind you. Now's the time to let go of things that have been slowing you down and dragging you back. You might have to look at a few of your own demons or just to some stuff that you swept under the carpet. Those kind of things are what's also holding you back. But now's a chance to go forward freshly. It's also a great opportunity to get some help, to let someone in, both at your personal level and at your professional level. Letting someone in while getting rid of everything that's old is what's going to take you forward in 2023. Sagittarius, your theme for the year is reorganize your foundations. You famously jump left, right, center, do a million things at the same time. All good. It brings in new experience and new rewards for you. But sometimes you neglect to deal with square one, and that's the square you're coming from. So this year, focus on building your foundation, your home, your family, your world around you to be strong so that in the years ahead, you're able to reach out and stretch out in all the ways you're able to do and love to do. You're going to get a lot of reward out of focusing on square one, the world immediately around you during 2023. Capricorn, if you play your cards right, this is the year of financial security for you. Whatever your current financial situation, this is the time to start focusing on paying off old debts, clearing up whatever financial issues might be lingering in your life, and also, of course, growing the finances you have. It looks like there will be great opportunities to grow. The challenge will be not to let it easily slip through your fingers. Not something you'd normally do, but it looks like there are quite a few demands from the people around you. Create good boundaries, deal with old debt, build a strong new foundation. It's your year for financial mastery. Aquarius, this is your year to get back to basics, get back to roots, and also find the people who really are the ones that are supporting you. It looks like you draw so many different people into your life. That benefits you, benefits them. We've often spoken on this show about how you really still love doing it your way yourself. This is the year to actually draw the right people into your life. Family, friends, sort out who's who. Build your own community. Your theme for the year, Aquarius, one that you should love, is community. But community isn't just anyone. It's the people who really are the closest to you. Focus on those. Pisces, it's a fresh start year for you. You can concentrate on getting rid of old stuff, on moving on from stuff that's lingering from 2022. It's really time to build a new foundation and, if necessary, start all over again, or build a foundation on what you've established is really working for you. You're in a period of easy gains and easy growth that continues into 2023. Now turn it into something tangible. Build that foundation. Sometimes means just working on home and family is going to do that for you. Concentrate on the essentials. Think of it as a foundation. Make it last for years ahead. That's your 2023. Challenging as always, but an exciting year ahead. Look forward to speaking to you every month about it. And of course, I'll be back next week with a look at the month ahead for February.